The receipt, inside the doll, listed every owner. Her name was already there, dated tomorrow. We talk about objects carrying history the way we talk about furniture having character, fondly, metaphorically, with the comfortable understanding that what we mean is the accumulated associations of human presence rather than any literal transfer of consequence. An old chair belonged to someone interesting. A vintage ring passed through interesting hands. The object carries the story. Some objects carry more than the story. Some objects carry the ledger. Marisol Vega found the doll on a Sunday morning at a flea market in Providence. Porcelain, 19th century, dressed in a morning gown of black silk that had held its color with unusual fidelity, seated in a small wicker chair with the specific composed quality of a thing that has been waiting rather than simply sitting. She was a collector. She knew what she was looking at in terms of age, construction, condition. She did not know what she was looking at in terms of function. She found the receipt inside the dress pocket when she got home. Her name was at the bottom. The date beside it was tomorrow. She made a decision that seemed, in the moment, entirely reasonable. It was not reasonable. It was the exact mechanism the doll had been counting on. Marisol Vega was 36, a collector and restorer of antique dolls with a specialty in 19th century porcelain and a reputation in the community that was equal parts respected and slightly feared, as reputations in small expert communities often become when they are fully earned. She had an apartment in Providence that was also a workshop and also, in the particular way of her profession, a small and very considered museum of the things she found most interesting and had not been able to sell. Her eye was excellent. She had held, over 15 years, objects that were worth considerably less than they appeared, and objects that were worth considerably more. And she knew the difference in the first 30 seconds of handling. She paid $40 for the doll at a Sunday market in Fox Point. She knew, handling it, that $40 was not the right price, that the doll was worth substantially more, that the seller either didn't know or had reasons for selling quickly that she didn't need to examine. The construction was 1890s German bisque porcelain, exceptional quality, the face painted with a precision that indicated a master-level artisan rather than a production workshop. The morning dress was silk, real silk, original to the doll, which was rare, and had maintained its color with a fidelity that she would have called anomalous if she'd been writing a condition report. The wicker chair was original. The whole assemblage was complete and intact in a way that 130 years rarely permitted. She brought it home and set it on her workbench and began the condition assessment she performed on every new acquisition. The receipt was in the dress's right pocket, a small, deep pocket of the kind Victorian dress construction included as a practical feature and that doll makers reproduced in scaled form for completeness. The receipt was folded twice, yellowed, the paper of the kind used for commercial transactions in the 1890s, a specific weight and texture she recognized from her work with period documents. She unfolded it. It was a purchase receipt, formatted in the standard structure of a late Victorian retail transaction. Seller. Item described as one porcelain memorial doll in morning dress, with wicker chair. Buyer's name. Date. Price. Below the first entry, in the same hand, the same ink, the same format, a second entry, a different buyer, a different date, a different price. And below that, a third, a fourth. The receipt listed 31 transactions. The dates spanned from 1892 to the present. The names she did not recognize until she reached the 28th, which was the name of a collector in Boston she had met at an auction in 2019 who had died the following year. She remembered the death, remembered the obituary, remembered thinking the timing was unfortunate. The date beside his name on the receipt was the date of his death. The notation beside it, in small red ink, was a cross out. A single horizontal line through the name. All 30 entries above her own were crossed out in red, each with a date. She looked at the dates and cross-checked what she could cross-check and found what she expected to find, which was that the dates were not dates of sale or acquisition, but dates of death. 30 previous owners, all 30 crossed out. Her name was entry 31, written in the same hand as every other entry, in the same ink, in the same format. The date beside it was tomorrow. She sat with this for the specific period that a person needs to sit with information that is simultaneously absurd and, in a way she can feel in her professional bones, entirely credible. Then she made the practical decision of a woman who has spent 15 years knowing the difference between the object's appearance and the object's reality. She would destroy the receipt. She used her workshop lighter. She held the corner of the folded receipt to the flame and watched the paper catch and held it over the metal waste bin and watched it burn. The ink did not burn. The paper burned away entirely, flaking to ash in the bin, and the ink remained. 31 entries in mid-air above the ash for a single, impossible moment. And then her skin was warm on the inside of her left forearm, and she looked down and the ink was there. Not transferred. There, as though it had always been. A faint birthmark in the quality of old writing that sat on her skin with the indifference of something that was simply where it had always been. She held her arm under the workbench lamp. 31 entries, her name at the bottom, the date tomorrow, the red cross outline not yet drawn. She called her doctor and made an appointment for a skin examination. She spent the rest of the day researching the doll. She searched the names she had not recognized. The 29 above the Boston collector, through obituary archives, estate sale records, auction house Providence documentation. She found 26 of them and their death dates. All 26 matched the receipt. The doll sat on her workbench in its wicker chair with the composed, patient quality it had arrived with, and did not change in any observable way, and did not need to. The karmic ledger that the doll had been built to contain was not a curse in any causal sense. It did not kill its owners. It documented them. Each owner's death was recorded in the receipt with the precision of a ledger entry, because each owner's death was the entry. The receipt updated itself at the moment of each owner's death, filling in the date, drawing the cross outline. The doll's presence in an owner's life was not the cause of their mortality. It was simply there, bearing witness, maintaining the record when mortality, as it always did, arrived. The mechanism for the final entry was different. Each owner who attempted to destroy the receipt triggered the transfer protocol, the ink migrating from paper to skin, embedding in the new owner's body at the location of the highest circulatory density, which was to say the location closest to the heart. The birthmark would migrate slowly over the days and weeks following the destruction attempt, following the paths of the circulatory system from the forearm inward. It would reach eventually the sternum, then the heart itself. When the ink reached the heart, the entry was complete. The entry being complete did not mean the owner died. It meant the ledger recognized them as documented, fully recorded, fully belonging to the chain, their presence in the sequence made permanent in a way that superseded physical mortality. Their name would remain on the receipt forever, undated, uncrossed, because the ledger no longer needed to wait for a date. The date had become irrelevant. They were already the 31st entry. The doll would then require a 32nd. Marisol spent 4 days attempting to find a reversal. She contacted 3 specialists in antique occult objects. She read the academic literature on karmic ledger objects, which was thin, and treated its subject with the careful distance of scholarship that does not fully believe what it is documenting. She translated the receipt's header, which she had initially read as standard retail formatting, and found that the Latin phrase at the very top, which she had taken for a seller's motto or shop name, translated as each name paid in full, each line completed, the chain unbroken. On the 5th day, the birthmark had moved from her forearm to her upper arm. On the 8th day, it reached her collarbone. She sat in her workshop on the 12th day and looked at the doll, and the doll looked back. Had always looked back. It was a doll. Its painted eyes were directed forward, and she understood with the complete certainty of a professional who knows the difference between an object's appearance and its reality that there was no reversal available, that the 31 entries above hers had found no reversal either, that the doll had been built in 1892 by someone who understood exactly what they were making and had made it to be undefeatable. On the 17th day, the birthmark reached her sternum. On the 18th day, the doll's eyes opened. Not the subtle shift of painted eyes in changing light, the quality of which Marisol had spent 15 years calibrating her perception to detect. The eyes opened. The iris, which had been fixed, moved. The eyelids, which had been painted open, were now, by a mechanism she did not examine and did not need to examine, capable of closing and opening. They blinked once, with the measured regularity of something confirming a function, and then remained open and looked at her with the specific attention of something that has finished waiting. The doll spoke. A single name. A woman in Cincinnati. Age, address, the specific circumstance that would bring her into proximity with the doll within the next 4 months. Spoken in a voice that was not a child's voice, and was not Marisol's voice, and was not human in any category she could comfortably place. Marisol sat in her workshop and listened. She knew what this meant. She knew the receipt on her arm, with the cross outline that was not yet drawn, was about to have a 30-second entry written below hers. She knew the woman in Cincinnati was going to find the doll at a market or an auction or in a box of estate items, and was going to be drawn to it with the professional eye of a collector, and was going to bring it home. She looked at the doll. The doll looked back. Its painted face wore the expression it had always worn, the composed, patient quality of something that has been waiting rather than simply sitting. It would keep this expression forever. It had worn it since 1892. It would wear it through however many entries remained in the chain, which was to say, it would wear it forever, because the chain did not end. Marisol Vega set the doll back in its wicker chair. Her name was on the receipt and would remain there. The ink over her sternum was warm. She started a new condition report on her laptop, the standard format she used for every acquisition. She typed the doll's description with her professional precision: age, construction, materials, condition, provenance. In the notes field, she typed chain object, receipt embedded in owner on destruction attempt, current entry 31. Next buyer, Cincinnati. Do not attempt to destroy documentation. She filed it and closed the laptop. Outside, Providence proceeded with its ordinary Sunday business, and the doll sat in its wicker chair on the workbench with its eyes open and waited for its 30-second. She did the research. She found 26 of the 29 names she didn't recognize and confirmed their death dates against the receipt. She spent 4 days looking for a reversal. She read the academic literature. She translated the header Latin. She produced a thorough, accurate condition report on a karmic ledger object for an audience of no one, because she was a professional and documentation was what she did. There was no reversal. I want to be clear about this because it matters. Marisol Vega is not a cautionary tale about someone who ignored evidence. She followed every piece of evidence to its logical end and found that the end offered nothing. The chain had no exit. The 30 entries above hers had each, presumably, done some version of the same investigation, and some of them had destroyed the receipt and had the ink migrate to their skin, and had eventually been completed by the ledger. The only red flag, the only genuinely avoidable moment, is the burning. Burning the receipt while already in possession of the doll. She saw her name and a death date, and her first response was destruction of the evidence. This is, I want to say, entirely understandable. It is also exactly the response the doll was built to rely on. Every owner who burns the receipt becomes the next permanent entry. Every owner who doesn't, who keeps the paper, who passes it on, who understands the chain's mechanism before they engage it, presumably ends up somewhere else entirely. She made a note. Do not attempt to destroy documentation. She filed it. The doll is in her workshop. The woman in Cincinnati doesn't know her name is being held in a porcelain mouth in Providence, waiting to be released to the receipt on Marisol's arm. The chain is unbroken. It always has been. Thank you for joining me tonight. My name is Ilara, and I am your whisperer. I'll be here, waiting for you next time. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. I want to hear your stories. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more. This has been Karma Quietly Whispers. See you soon.